Roald Dahl. The name conjures images of fantastical chocolate factories, mischievous gremlins, and a giant peach soaring through the sky. But the man behind these beloved children's stories lived a life far more captivating than any fiction he could have penned. Hi everyone, this is InfoCraft, a segment of Notescraft where we unravel the knowledge into all things literature, their authors, and their adaptations. Today, we delve into the untold story of Roald Dahl, a story shrouded in mystery, intrigue, and even a touch of espionage. Most people know Dahl as the author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach. You won't be surprised to learn that Roald Dahl enjoyed chocolate, that he had children of his own, or that he invented 238 words in the BFG alone. Perhaps you won't even be surprised to learn that he always wrote on yellow paper, or that his parents were Norwegian. But did you know that he was friends with Ernest Hemingway, or that he spoke Swahili, or that he was a spy? Dahl had a wildly interesting life, even before he was writing about Oompa Loompas. At the outbreak of World War II, Dahl accepted a commission in the British Army and was assigned to the Royal African Rifles. After just 1 month in the Army, Dahl jumped branches and joined the Royal Air Force, training as a fighter pilot. His first permanent assignment as a pilot was to 80 Squadron, a unit that flew the last British biplanes still in military service. In September 1940, while flying his outdated aircraft across Egypt, Dahl got disoriented in the desert and eventually crash-landed when he ran out of fuel. The rough landing left Dahl with a cracked skull and temporary blindness. Fortunately, he was rescued, and he recovered enough to get back in the cockpit in time for shooting down German planes in the Battle of Athens, 1941, where the 12 pilots of 80 Squadron took on approximately 150 German aircraft. They shot down 22 German planes before losing 5 of their own and retreating to Egypt, where Dahl managed to shoot down 2 more enemy aircraft, securing his status as an ace. Roald Dahl also served in the British Colonial Army in East Africa. Before he was a fighter pilot, he moved to Kenya and then Tanzania as an employee of Shell Petroleum, where he lived in a mansion and learned Swahili. So, just go ahead and put him on a list of your extremely problematic faves. Once World War II broke out, he was also put in charge of rounding up all the Germans in Dar es Salaam for the British government. Dahl's head injury never fully healed, and he began to experience blackouts, grounding him for the rest of the war. While recovering, Dahl took on a new role as an attaché to Washington, D.C. However, going from aerial combat to cocktail parties didn't sit well with the fighter ace, so he was eventually tasked with the more interesting job of spying on President Franklin D. Roosevelt. His immersion into the world of spies and espionage acquainted him with fellow officer-turned-author Ian Fleming, best known for writing books about James Bond. Well, not only was he a spy, he was a sexy spy. Following his stint as a fighter pilot, Dahl was sent to the U.S. as an intelligence agent. He supplied info about the American Inner Circle to an MI6 organization alongside Officer Ian Fleming. While in America, Dahl hung out with fellow writer Ernest Hemingway and seduced a few high-profile American socialites, in the name of gathering intelligence, of course. It was another author, C.S. Forester, who first encouraged Dahl to pursue writing. In 1942, Forester asked Dahl to jot down some details about his crash in Egypt for a wartime propaganda story in the Saturday Evening Post. Instead, Dahl wrote an account of his crash that impressed Forester so much he decided to run Dahl's full story, which was well received. Dahl described the publication of his detailed account as life-changing. After the war, Dahl was medically discharged and pursued a writing career. He found early success with the Gremlins and went on to write such classics as Matilda, The Witches, and the BFG. He's remembered for his children's books, but Dahl also wrote screenplays and television shows, including the screenplay for You Only Live Twice, the James Bond film based on his friend Ian Fleming's novel of the same name. Dahl's whimsical stories about friendly giants and eccentric candy enthusiasts captivate new readers each year, but his exploits as a deadly fighter pilot and spy make for equally enthralling stories. Before he became a family man, most of his writing was for grown-ups. He did start his writing career with the harrowing tale of surviving a plane crash, after all, and he followed it up with macabre and sometimes erotic short stories. He continued writing for adults throughout his career, but his children's writing eventually became his most well-known work. Roald Dahl's family life was marred by tragedy. In 1960, his 4-month-old son Theo was hit by a taxi and suffered brain damage. The infant had suffered multiple skull fractures and brain injury, which resulted in secondary hydrocephalus, a buildup of cerebral spinal fluid on the brain. The hydrocephalus was treated with a Holter shunt, but his shunt had clogged, causing the spinal fluid to back up and put pressure on his brain. The hydrocephalus had temporarily blinded him, and over the next 9 months, his shunt would malfunction 6 more times, each time leaving him temporarily blind and at risk for permanent brain damage. Dahl, along with surgeon Kenneth Till and toymaker Stanley Wade, invented the Wade-Dahl-Till valve to help his recovery. Young Theo survived the episode with minimal problems and grew to be a healthy adult. It is after his son's harrowing episode he began to write for children, a move that spread his clever touch to a much wider audience. But 2 years later, his 7-year-old daughter Olivia died of measles, and Dahl became a fierce advocate for childhood vaccination. The BFG is dedicated to her. 3 years after that, his wife suffered 3 aneurysms while pregnant. No wonder his stories are so dark. Eventually, he passed away in 1990, but his sense of humor lives on. He was given a modified Viking funeral and buried with some of his favorite things, including his trusty pencils, red wine, chocolate, of course, snooker cues, and a power saw. Roald Dahl, the man behind the magic, leaves us with a legacy that transcends the pages of his books. So the next time you pick up a Roald Dahl book, remember, there's more to the story than meets the eye. The man behind the magic lived a life that was stranger than fiction, proving that sometimes the greatest adventures are the ones we least expect. Thank you for watching. Please like and share our video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you like our content, please let us know what you want to see next in the comments down below.